Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds post-game live. Geoff Mosher with Adam Caplan. It is over. The NFL regular season is done. And the Eagles, Adam, and their backup beat the New York Giants 20-13. And that means the Eagles, Adam, finished with 14 wins, a 14-3 record. And as a lot of people, they said it on the broadcast, and people know this, when the Eagles win 14 games, they go to So chalk one up for optimism category right there as the Eagles really get ready for the playoffs next week.
Yeah, this is the evaluation game, totally. No question about it. We'll get into the offense and defense and what happened and why it happened and so forth. Some of the lineups, which are interesting, some of the rotational decisions that the Eagles had to make. And I know it wasn't easy for the coaching staff or the front office. They had to make some tough decisions because you only had two elevations. But the bottom line is they got through it. Very impressive. Tanner McKee was phenomenal through a half. The second half timing was a little bit off, but overall he was phenomenal in the first half. The offensive line did a really good job, by the way. So they have to feel really good about his progress because front offices and coaches, they don't grade by snapshots. They don't go by, okay, well, the guy made four throws. Here you go. He's our quarterback. That doesn't work that way. They go through the classroom, on the field, OTAs, training camp, preseason, regular season practices, training room, classroom. How does he handle himself? And you saw it manifest today. This is a really nice story of a guy not a lot of teams liked. I can tell you that. We haven't really talked about this, but a lot of clubs were concerned about his mobility. But folks, you could throw that out the door because today he showed tremendous mobility. Quite frankly, we didn't see in training camp, and that was really a terrific performance for a half, no doubt.
Yeah, it seemed like Kellen Moore used that maybe concern or the knock on Tanner McKee or the book on Tanner McKee to his advantage because he got the offense going early on with a lot of boots, a lot of rollouts, play action, under center. It's kind of funny. You have a more of a pocket quarterback in, and he's more of a pocket quarterback than not only Jalen Hurts, but even Kenny Pickett, who we've seen leave the pocket early. But McKee likes to stay in the pocket, like to distribute. And because of that, you could see what the offense looks like in just a different style there when you're going downhill under center more, using some motion and getting him out to fool the Giants defense. Brian Daboll even said it in the interview after the first quarter when asked, what's wrong with his defense? Why aren't they stopping Eagles backups? Yeah. He said, well, they're doing some bootleg stuff. So I'm sure he would have said unscouted looks because that's not what you expect. On the flip side, when the Eagles weren't ahead of the sticks per se, when it was third downs or second and longs, you could see he had to rush throws. He would be a little inaccurate. He threw at a couple people feet or behind. And that's probably what you're going to get from him, especially in his first NFL start. But good showing. And the defense, Adam, which again was made up of some starters, but a lot of reserves also, they do a nice job. I thought Malik Neighbors was going to have 50 targets. I was a little surprised in this game how that went.
By the way, breaking news, it's going to be the Eagles will face the Packers next week. It's official.
It is official.
Yeah, wow. The Packers went up choking late. The Bears won on a field goal, and it doesn't really matter now because the Packers lost. But Washington just came back late too. Wow, that was crazy because we were like, okay, who are they going to face? But now we know it's going to be the Packers. It went back and forth, by the way, the last 45 minutes, but in both of those games, the Washington-Dallas game and the Bear-Packer game. So, yeah, there you go. But, yeah, let's get back to what you just brought up. So I just felt like there was a kind of a stacked deck here considering you're playing with five backup offensive linemen. You're playing now I understand he's worked with a number of these guys, but this is in practice, folks, you don't get hit. The speed of practice is nowhere close to a game, so you don't know about that until you get there. And it was interesting, and I it's funny because we were doing the I was in Discord in and out during the game, and a lot of people are commenting. It is amazing how quickly, and I agree that McKee makes good decisions, quick decisions, and the ball gets out, and all of a sudden, Jahan Dotson, who the Commandos didn't want, they found a team would take him with the Eagles. He becomes a player today. Aniyah Smith has his first NFL touchdown. So does E.J. Jenkins. It's just funny how in a game like this that things sped up a little bit for their passing game.
Yeah, definitely. Really, it was sort of interesting to watch. Then the game sort of settled into a little bit of a snooze fest as we were texting back and forth. And then it got exciting there in the fourth quarter. So let's set the stage. I want to talk about this game a little bit, but also we are going to get into a little bit of what the playoffs might look like. So, as you mentioned, the matchup is set. It is concrete now. The Eagles are the number 2 seed. The Packers are the 7 seed. The Packers will be traveling to Philadelphia sometime next weekend. You and I have done this for a long time. I think you and I both see this game probably being sometime in the late afternoon or evening based on the teams, the market size. Green Bay is not a big market, but they have a ton of fans across the country. They are a team that people across the country typically watch. So I'm thinking this will either be, the late Sunday game or the Monday. I'm sorry. Yeah, Sunday or Monday game, maybe Saturday night. I don't know. I forget how the time slots work, but I'm imagining this will be a prime time game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if it's going to be prime time, let it be Saturday. I could live with that. That would suck if it's Monday night. And last year's game was Monday night. Remember, the Eagles at Tampa, and that was just that was pretty rough. But yeah. So now, by the way, Jordan Love hurt his right elbow. He did not return. He got hurt in the first half. He got actually hurt fairly early. So they had a number of players not play today for Green Bay. They had a bunch of defensive injuries, and Christian Watson re-injured his knee. He had a bruised knee, which cost him his 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got hurt early. We don't know exactly what the knee injury is. So they've got a number of issues to deal with. And Malik Willis got thrown in there on short notice, did the best that he could. But then they started, by the way, just so you know, they started rolling some backups in the second half. I will see what Matt LaFleur says. We'll try to get a copy of his transcript after the game. I'm curious what his thought process was. So, because Emmanuel Wilson took over in the fourth quarter, I don't know that Josh Jacobs was hurt.
Right.
And they started playing Malik Heath and a bunch of backups late. But look, the Eagles know them. They played them week 1. That was a phenomenal game. That game in Brazil was back and forth. That was like a playoff type atmosphere. It was a great game.
Yep.
But this is getting back to the Eagles game today. That was really impressive. Defensively, very disciplined, good tackling. Until the second half, there was some sloppy tackling against Tyrone Tracy, the Giants rookie running back out of Purdue. But overall, the coaches. This is a developmental game. They learn a lot about some of these backups because you don't know until they have to play extensively. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of goodness out of this defense today.
Let's get into a quick nugget that was mentioned on the broadcast that is very, I think, important for Eagles fans to know. The broadcast team, they get to watch certain parts of practice. They get to have interviews, things leading up to the game. They were at the walkthrough on Saturday, and they said Jalen Hurts was with the team outside at the walkthrough, not participating, but outside, when we know that that's part of the protocol where you do have to get in that light sensitivity. So it appears that Jalen Hurts has moved into the next stage of concussion protocol, and we'll get more of an update on him in the coming days, but that's a good sign.
Yeah, I would hope I don't know if the reporters are going to know this because they're at the game, and I don't know if they have the sound on. As you know, going in the press box, it's sometimes hard to hear.
Yep.
But am I wrong? Did Andrew Caplan, who did the game, who was doing the play-by-play, did he say Jalen was doing the scout team? Was he working the scout team, or did he just say he was there? I can't remember.
I thought he said he was there. I don't recall him saying he's with the scout team.
Or mimicking, I thought. I could have sworn he said mimic him. Well, whatever the case may be, our understanding is that should be the third stage. He should be at the third stage by now. He was at 2 late last week. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, he was at practice. That's actually very important. That he was actually out there on the field. The walk on a walkthrough on a Saturday is usually about half an hour to 45 minutes. But the fact that he was out there was a good sign. Mm-hmm. The best way to sum it up is that's fine, but all that matters is he practicing the first day that they return to practice, which could be depending if they play Saturday, they're going to practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, walk through Friday, game Saturday.
Right.
Go through 3 days out.
Yep.
Before the walkthrough. So yeah, that we'll see. That's a huge deal though. That's good. That was a good update because I was not expecting that. But they got that from actually wasn't a production meeting. They were out there. They let the talking to the announcers over the years. They usually get there on a Friday, have the meetings, the production meeting with the head coach, and then they get to go to the walkthrough. And if you get there early enough, I remember talking to Troy Aikman. Sometimes you get there early enough to be at the Friday practice, it's always good to see what kind of plays that they're running. And what you do is they can't say anything until the game. They go, oh, you know what? They just ran that practice. They play on Friday. Boy, or sometimes the announcer will go, you know what? They didn't run it as well on Friday, but they sure did in the game or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So.
Right. So yeah, we'll see. And to your point, if they play Monday night game, they won't even be out on the practice field probably until Thursday. That's the way it would work. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the Sunday off day before the Monday night game. So it'll be interesting to see when they'll be at practice and the reports that come out of that. Just thought it was, it's very important that we hit on that and what they said on the broadcast. Secondly, let's talk about some players that played. You and I were a little surprised in this game to see. Well, I guess once they activated Goddard onto the 53, it seemed like the only reason to do that was if you were going to play him in this game. If not, you could have just used the spot for another reserve, which we had talked about on the podcast. He got in there, he played, he took some hits at him. I was thinking, and I think you were along the same lines, that it seemed like an unnecessary risk for one of your most important players. And the fact with Uzama on IR, you don't have a lot of depth there to begin with. But I guess from the coach's standpoint, Adam, this is a guy, Goddard, who not only has missed the last 4 games, but missed a bunch of games earlier in the season too. So maybe they just felt that in order for him to be fully conditioned and to get out there and be Dallas Goedert, he needed to get at least a quarter in. I think he played a little bit in the second quarter. Take some hits and take some hits and knock the rust off. I'm not sure if I would have done the same thing, but listen, Nick made that decision. They're not scared, and he survived.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was the only thing that surprised me. Nothing else surprised me. Milton Williams playing was not really a surprise, as I told you. Right. You and I talked about it. You're going to play starters. You can't rest every starter. You just can't. Now you always have to decide. Okay, which of the few starters you're going to play, or you want to play? Who do you want to play in your meetings? You have the personnel meeting, and they go the way I'm told it works is you go around the coaching staff. Okay. Who either needs work or do we need because we don't have enough depth? Because you've got Thomas Burke and Ojomo, that's it. Because remember, you only have 2 elevations.
Right.
And they've elevated the kid, Dallas Gant, and who was the other one? Who's an inside backer? Who was the other guy that they elevated?
Oh, it was Gant and it wasn't O'Shawn Mathis, was it? I forget now who they elevated.
It was Charles Harris.
Harris, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because they were really light at edge, like super light on edge. At the edge rusher spot. So that's what they chose to do. And Ty Davis Price did not come up. So that's why if Davis Price was up, Gainwell probably would not have played. But then he didn't play. So they went with the other rotation would be Gainwell and Shipley. So they did that on offense. So let's go over this lineup. So this is what it looked like. But what's interesting is, it was Fred Johnson at left, Kennard at right, which is what we expected, Gates at center. But Steen, the reporters saw this, by the way, in practice. They saw the warm-up, so they kind of knew they saw this. It was Steen at left and Driscoll at right guard. And then what happened, it was really interesting. They went with a combination. They went in the second half. They had Jack Driscoll still in with Trevor Keegan, who both manned the guard spots. I didn't see center. Did they replace Gates? I didn't see that.
I thought Gates played the entire game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they did what we were hoping they would do, is not pull McKee for Ian Book. Why would you do that? They didn't. They let McKee go to start for finish. That is the best way to evaluate a developmental quarterback, is let him play the entire game and live with the ups and downs, and which are mostly ups in this game. So they did that. Defensively, the starting 11 was Hunt, Booker, and Ojomo. And Jordan Davis, we alluded to this. We thought this would happen. It happened. What I didn't expect to happen is, why was Jordan Davis in the game in the fourth quarter? What the hell?
Well, if you think about it, they never brought Gabe Hall. They didn't elevate Gabe Hall, right?
I get it, but do you need you're a starting defensive lineman in the fourth quarter? Really?
I mean,
I know he doesn't play
we've talked about this. He needs the work. It's not like we know that Vic Fangio doesn't consider him as significant of a player as some people want to make it out to be.
You think?
Be out there. Now, Milton Williams being out there in the third quarter just showed you what we talked about is you can't not rotate defensive linemen in a game like this. It's very cold, especially. You had to, and they didn't have anybody other than Ojomo and who was the other backup they were going to play? Ojomo and Booker. Right. Yeah. You can't play them 100% of the game, so they had to get Williams and they had to get Davis in there. No game.
Yeah. By the way, the run defense was really good.
It was.
They did an excellent job, man. These guys are so coached up well. I mean, it shows, it manifests, in this game that they're coached well. It showed again. Bryce Huff started by the inside backers were what we expected. Burks and Trotter. They went with the outside corners were Ringo and Rogers, And then the safeties were Maddox and McCollum. McCollum had that whiff on the touchdown. Now, I don't know if Greg Cosell will watch he probably won't watch the entire tape, knowing him.
Don't make this man do that.
I know. Because we're really only going to, when we do inside the tape, we're going to break it. We're not going to break down this game. We're just not.
Right. We're going to look at the Packers, the first game, this game. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. This game doesn't matter.
Right.
It's about who's going to be playing, which is going to be the starters. But it was just really weird to see the 11 starting players as inactives. It was just kind of weird to see that. And then, so the big thing, though, the cool thing is that McKee and Anais Smith, who had worked together, because he had been really a third string receiver, you could see that their work today. I mean, and Anais had a nice touchdown. He hit the goal line. He got his first NFL touchdown. That was really cool. Dotson was super active. It's good to see that. You mentioned McKee and Goddard hooked up early. What's that?
How about Dotson going into the game with like 12 catches for 120 yards and finishing with 7 catches for 9? I mean, he almost had 80% of his season total up to that point, in one game.
Yeah. And Johnny Wilson did what he does. He's in there to block, and he had a couple catches. I thought, although I was hoping because of his height that maybe he'd get the ball in the end zone, but that was not to be. And then Shipley came in and had a couple of nice runs. You could see his explosion, but Gainwell just could not get on track. He just couldn't. He's better coming off the bench, clearly in back of Barkley. But honestly, this is just a really good story for a bunch of backups. And I'm telling you, this tape is super important for these coaches. They certainly learned a lot today.
Yeah, and by the way, on the note, Will Shipley, we had reported it when they drafted him that he was a guy who did not catch the ball a whole lot at Clemson, but the Eagles saw something in his tape to make them think that he could be a good catcher of the football. And, goes back to he played in the season opener. It was a little bit, just 1 or 2 snaps, but he did. What did he catch? Like 4 balls for 35 yards in this game. He had a nice little catch on a dump off when McKee was under pressure and he made somebody miss. So you're starting to see Will Shipley, obviously when you're looking at this game, you're looking about future talent and next year and what can Shipley do if Gainwell is not back, right? He looked like a player who can do some things outside of just running the ball up the middle.
The 2 issues with him is physicality. He's just not physical. And although the one play, he was really physical. He did have one physical play, but overall he's not. That was a knock on him. And Gainwell's a supreme pass protector. He just is. He's better than Barkley at it, and he's better than Shipley. That's what the tape shows.
Yeah.
We knew that coming in anyway. It's not a surprise. But overall, there's just so many good signs here. I honestly, we didn't in our pregame show. We weren't going to pick the winner of the game. I would have picked the Giants. I'll tell you that because I just felt like, my God, unless the Giants weren't quitting. I mean, Neighbors had a big game. Wan'Dale Robinson, he had a lot of targets and catches, but he didn't get free downfield. They were trying to win the game. They legitimately were trying to win it. But this group of backups for the Eagles were just terrific. I mean, wow, I was definitely pleasantly surprised by that.
Listen, you heard me say it on the pod. I said it on the NFL Weekly Preview show that I do each guy. I cannot believe, or I could not believe, knowing that the Eagles were going to play all their backups, as it was stated early in the week, that the Giants were 3-point underdogs in this game. But now, having watched it, so Brian Daboll was like mind screwing me for a little while because in the first quarter, Adam, he goes for it on 4th and 7 at the middle of the field, which is a really hard. The Eagles were showing cover 2. Like, what are you going to do? Complete a 5-yard pass? I didn't understand, and then I thought, okay. He's doing the whole we're trying to win, but it's okay if we don't. He's making it hard for his team to win the game, maybe for the higher pick, which didn't make sense to me because they won the week before playing really hard against the Colts. So for a minute, I'm like, maybe he's just trying, you're not trying to lose, but you're trying to call a game to make it harder. I don't know. But then they go for it with the they call the fake punt and they get it the next series. So I'm like, oh no, he's really trying to call a win here. And then they still lose to the Eagles backup. So I was perplexed by the whole thing. The odds makers had it right. I had it wrong. I just guess I underestimated just how bad the Giants really are.
Well, by the way,
I thought maybe he was going to get 20 targets in this game, and he really didn't.
Who'd you say, Neighbors?
Neighbor. I thought that they were going to throw
yeah.
as much as we could.
It was Wandale Robinson, but no, the thing that, by the way, they played such dumb football. Those penalties late. How
Oh,
dumb can you be?
that's the Giants. You're right.
It's embarrassing. It's just, are you trying that? I don't want to say trying to lose, but how undisciplined, and they kept doing it, and the Eagles were goading them.
Yep.
Oh, I was like, what? I can't imagine John Mara. Like, the word around the team is that Mara would like to bring him and would like to bring Dayball and the GM back, Joe Shane. But man, I gotta tell you, I know these things are never done on one specific reason. It's generally based on a series of situations for weeks and months. Then you make an evaluation whether it's good or bad. But this today, it's just an embarrassment. If you and I were running the show, man, I would say, dude, I know we want to bring this guy back, but man, we gotta things got to be done differently here. They're an absolute embarrassment.
They were an embarrassment, undisciplined. It was bad enough that it happened early in the game on the tush push where they jump off sides, but then with the chance to win, and again, I'm assuming they're playing to win. Not only do they get a neutral zone infraction on a 4th down, but then they follow that up with getting a 3rd down stop, and Thibodeau hits the quarterback late and gets an unsportsmanlike to keep it going. I'm watching this and I'm like, I cannot believe how bad this team is. And if I were the owner of the team, and John Mara, as you said, is a very patient man. He's not impulsive. He's probably, sometimes you have to check that. I've met him before. He's a very nice man. Sometimes you're almost wondering, like, is this guy alive? Like, he's just he moves and very quiet, very pragmatic guy. But I would not blame him whatsoever if he walked into the locker room after the game and just fired every single coach and GM and scout and whatever on the spot for that kind of play in the 4th quarter. Oh my God. It just wouldn't have surprised me.
I mean, it's just, they're an embarrassment. But getting back to the Eagles. So what do we learn? McKee is very, I mean, as a passer and a processor, you're seeing it. Whatever problems clubs have with him, his lack of mobility, he wouldn't always step in and throws. That's the way we understood it at Stanford. Well, you could have fooled me, because this kid, again, teams don't evaluate on snapshots. They go over every single piece of information. The Eagles have it. They know, because he's been with them now. This is year 2. He's been quite the story. There's no question about it. And and it's so obvious to me they wanted to really evaluate him. Did you see how many attempts he had in the first half? I think he had 20.
It was, yeah, it was a decent amount. I mean, they came out throwing. I mean,
yeah,
listen, they were still throwing when they could have been running the clock down in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, that was dumb. I know. When you text me, I'm like, I don't know why you're doing this. Are they taking this like a preseason game? We don't care if we win. I don't know, but I thought they learned plenty. And it was good to see. By the way, good to see with Aniyah Smith, with all the problems he had, the foot issue before the draft, which dropped him. Then he dealt with another foot injury, or in training camp. So he got off to the wrong foot, so to speak. Pun not intended. I just have to say that. But he looked good today. It was interesting. They didn't have him return punts, so they had Dotson do it. Which not kind of what we were expecting, but not that it really matters. Rodgers, by the way, had a beautiful 51-yard return. He looked explosive on that return.
I wonder if there's something in practice. Reporters don't get to watch anything other than warm-ups, that in punt return, which they do every day, if they just not seeing it for Aniyah Smith there, because again, when Cooper went down, they didn't have him do it, right? They had not Cooper. Yeah. When Brent Covey went down, they had Cooper DeJean do it. It was never an Aniyah Smith situation. And even though Vic Fangio was begging them to not use Cooper DeJean in punt returns week after week, it was Cooper DeJean. So I just wonder if there was something that they were seeing. Maybe we'll look into it and see if they're just not seeing what they want.
Here's the thing, though, on your point where they clearly are not seeing it. Aniyah Smith returned a kick today, not a punt. That to me is bizarre. Like, they obviously don't want him on punts. He's clearly not. It's either security. They don't like what they're seeing, because this is a perfect opportunity. This is what the kid did in college. This is what their thought process was, that he could do some of that. But that's an off-season challenge there, so they don't have to worry about that. Sidney Brown, by the way, had an interception, as we know, late to seal it. But the good thing is now let's hope that Goddard's not listed on the injury report this week, because as you said, he took a number of shots. And I'm thinking, I said this on the Discord, I'm like, okay, now get him out of there. Just get him out of there. And then they did it. I'm like, what are they doing? What are you doing?
It's like, oh man, they were playing with fire. But
yes, what he got there. Okay, I get it. You wanted him to knock the rust off before, right? I get all that. He clearly did get knocked around like that, and look, they've got real problems blocking a tight end if he can't play for some reason. But he looked really good, but he moved really well. McKee hit him in stride.
Mm-hmm.
That was good to see. Now, this on Discord, I see it here in the chat here on StreamYard. I know people are concerned about Jake Elliott. Yeah, that kick was bad. He's got a hook on it, as we reported 3 years ago. Was it the word we were given that they cleaned up the operation? The snap, the hold, the placement, and then the kick. They cured that, and then this year there's been a number of problems him hooking or pushing the ball. We're not experts, but that's what has happened.
Yep,
and it's not going away. Like he's their guy, no question about it. It's not a strength issue. It's just an accuracy issue. And Tyler Brown, the specialist coach, was really good. He's got to get him going here. And by the way, Elliott's got to be the kickoff guy. Enough of Braden Mann on kickoffs. It's ridiculous already.
Well, yeah, you wonder. You're right. Another bad kickoff for Braden Mann. And is this operation not smooth all of a sudden anymore? Has there been a regression from Braden Mann's standpoint on the hold? Because that was the issue a couple of years ago, as you just mentioned, that Jake Elliott was having. So we'll have to see. But and we're going to start something new here. As we talked about this, we've got a lot of comments here coming in on the stream, and we're going to post them and respond to some of the better questions and comments in a second. And a couple of people are already asking about Jake Elliott and the kicking. And Adam, the wind might be a factor, but this is a guy. But this is a guy who did make other field goals on that side of the field and has always been a inclement weather kicker. He's always been good in bad weather. So I can't just sit here. It looked like the one he missed was hooked right from the start. That didn't look like he was going down the middle and then drifted left. He just completely hooked it to the left. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but you asked me this question many times throughout the season, and I told you I'm not worried. I'm worried now. I'm not worried that he's going to just miss all of his next kicks, but I'm worried that, knowing that the Eagles have won some huge playoff games because of his right leg in late scenarios, is that going to be an issue in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? You sure hope not, but I told you a couple weeks ago, I'm not concerned. I think they'll figure it out. And now I am. I honestly am. I've changed my mind. I hope it doesn't come down to that. I'm not saying I expect him to miss in those situations. I'm just saying I have concern now because we've now seen it pretty much for most of the season.
Yeah, I would say this with Jake Elliott. Typically, this late, you don't want to screw the guy's confidence or like I know people are asking about, will they work anyone out? I would tend to doubt it unless he's got an injury. Not ruling it out, but typically you either do it in the regular season. You don't do it now, usually based on 27 years of covering this business. Usually don't do it this late. You do it over, like if it had been 5 straight weeks he was struggling, they would have worked out kickers ready, which they've not done, which kind of surprised me in the regular season, earlier this season. Right. After the 2 games where it looked really bad, okay, he wasn't hurt. What's the issue? Then he seemed to cure it. We thought he was back, then he wasn't. That's when the time to work him out. Now to do it now, you don't want to show a lack of confidence in your kicker. You don't want to do anything to ruin that because he's been a great story, clearly. But it's not good that he is right now. Let's sum this up. What heading into the playoffs? I know we'll talk more about this over the next couple of days when we do shows. But if you had to rank issues right now, if any, with the football team, how would you rank them or list them?
Yeah, I see nothing as an issue to the point where it's a major concern. I would just say kicking, special teams. I'm just giving you special teams altogether, because man. You go back to the Super Bowl. Hate to say it, but special teams. The who was it? Kadarius Toney punt return that set up one of the touchdowns, right? The Chiefs had Kadarius.
Right, and the punter was
right? Yeah, special teams wasn't good for them that year, and it cost them in a big game. And then it's not that I have an issue with the pass rush at all. I just think against the really good offensive lines in the playoffs, they're probably going to need somebody to dominate one-on-ones on the outside, and I don't know that they'll get it consistently enough. We'll have to see. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying you don't have a guy who's got 12 to 15 sacks a year or, creates pressure every single time. You have good pass rushers, but not someone who's elite on the edges. That's it.
I would say I'd rank them.
Oh, and then of course, I'm sorry, pass offense too can be sporadic, so I got to throw that in there as well.
Yes, I'm not overly concerned. Boy, Hurts was so good against Pittsburgh. I know he hasn't played in a while. That's a concern. Get his timing down. We'll see what practice looks like this week. But yeah, I would rank it special teams, kickoffs. Enough of Braden Mann. Go with. I don't understand. This one has got me baffled. What else? What more evidence do they need? LA's just better at it.
I agree.
It's ridiculous. So straight, like they got to get that straight. That Sirianni's got it. This is one Sirianni's got to get a little bit involved as a CEO head coach, and the nonsense and get it as close to being great as you can. End it. Have Mann, let him be the punter. Elliott on kickoffs. He's fine. It's good enough. Okay. Number one. Number two, they've got to get him cleaned up. They got to get this issue corrected with the field goals. It's bad. Also, I know the wind, and by the way, he's been good with wind before, so I'm not sure what the issue is. It's something with mechanics or technique.
Yep.
And then I would say pass rush, yes. Now the good thing is Sweaty got off today, which I thought was obviously very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Getting Nolan Smith time off was very, very important. I didn't see him in there. I know he was technically active for the game. I didn't see him. I didn't think he played. Getting Jalen Carter, obviously, some time off. That's great. They don't have to travel anyway. For the next 2 weeks, the only time they'd have to travel would be in the championship game. If, obviously, if they were playing the Lions or the Vikings, we'll learn tonight. But yeah, and then Hurts, it's just because you knew they could win a game with Hurts' arm in 22 because he showed any in the Super Bowl. He was absolutely phenomenal. Other than the fumble, people want to still beat him up over. But as throwing the football, it doesn't get much better than that in 22. But now. It's just you don't quite know exactly what you're going to get, but let's hope he has a good week of practice leading up to the game against the Packers, by the way, here at the Linc. We'll find out tonight. It will be announced tonight. Now, some years they've actually announced it before the Sunday night game when they know exactly who the seeds are. We know the loser of that game tonight will be the 5th seed, and the winner obviously is the number 1 seed. That's so. And what they'll do is they'll send the release out. And then they'll send it again tomorrow. Like they'll say, okay, the number 1 seed that gets the bye, and the number 5 seed will play at, and they usually know the day. In fact, I wouldn't surprise me if we know by like 7:00 tonight, which I've seen over the years. So we'll see. Hopefully they do. And like you said, and I see in the chat here, I would love it to be on Saturday. I would be fine. How about you? Would you? I would love it to be Saturday.
I'll take anything other than Monday night.
Yeah. And yeah, for families, and remember, we're in the Eastern time zone here, so for families who have kids, you want to go to the game, for goodness sake. I mean, come on, let's not have that. So we've been so lucky with these 1:00 games. I thought for sure some of these would move. They weren't, so maybe the luck won't run out and we'll still have that.
All right, real quick, I did have, hopefully we had some technical difficulties that are gone, but I wanted to go to a few comments. This one's News for 9 says the deep punt and coverage by Ringo may be the best combo of kick distance and tackle for a loss I've seen.
Awesome.
That was excellent. And Ringo's been really good on special teams all year. He's the one special teams positive we can talk about here and say it's been really nice.
Yeah, in fact, although Sidney Brown has been really good on special teams. Really good special teams.
Yes, when he's not getting penalties and playing crazy.
When he's not hurt. Yeah, when he's not. No, he is a gunner. He was really good. So look, Ringo is the 4th corner. He's a developmental player who there's some things you have to live with. He's got that lower body stiffness, which we've talked about now for 3 years. We talked about it when he was drafted. This is part of the issue with him. He had off the field concerns, which I know a number of outlets talked about. Our information was similar but different. Not a bad kid at all. Just had to grow up a little bit, and he has everything we've heard behind the scenes. And he had a good train, not a great training camp. Rodgers clearly beat him out, but he has his role in special teams. But that was a great play today. I mean, that was a big time play. Braden Mann, by the way, is a pretty good punter. Not perfect, not like top 3, but he's a pretty good punter. That was a pretty good acquisition. You could thank the Steelers for that one.
Right. And speaking of Sidney Brown, Adam's Exploits noticed that Sidney Brown takes bad angles sometimes, which is
on defense. He sure does. Yeah,
he had a
terrible one today.
So he reminds me, Adam, a little bit of the way Ernie Sims would play, which is he can be so intense and so fast that he allows it to disrupt his discipline. in how he plays. And look, there's no better illustration or example of that is that when there's an injury at safety, Tristan McCullum is the guy who goes in. Right now, Vic Fangio trusts Tristan McCullum more on defense than he trusts Sidney Brown. So that's something Sidney's going to have to work on. You're right. He plays with intensity. He did make a nice interception at the end of the game. I mean, the ball floated up in the air. He just went and grabbed it. But the point is, he was a box safety mostly in college.
And that's what he is here.
Plays like that, like a tackler who's going to run up and hit
he's
you.
He's not a post safety.
He's got to play with discipline.
Yeah, and McCollum Bly was a post safety, so who's got really good length. McCollum, I mean, that was a bad angle, on the tackle or attempt on the neighbor's play. But and I see the comment about McKee. This is a really good story of and Howie. You got to like these last few drafts, and we talked about in the last show. I mean, man, other than Jordan Davis, who certainly had his moments, as Greg Cosell told us early in the season, he'd flash like 2 or 3 great plays per game, but he gets stood up way too many times. We saw it again today. Folks, let's call it like it is. The reason why we said it in the show this week, we would not be surprised. Not only would he start, that he played a decent amount, because he has not had a good year. That's what the tape tells you.
100%.
This is what we've been told, not only by Greg, but by other people who grade the tape for us. And he's a player that has had some concerns with technique. We know how hard they're working with him. He has not progressed like they would hope. He's one of the few players, quite frankly, in the last 3 years that has not progressed. I mean, Howie's gotten a number of draft picks correct. I mean, and free agency, holy smokes, is wow.
Yeah. All right, last comment, and then we'll close it off. And this is a good point. Nescon Productions says the Eagles should go into the playoffs with all their primary playmakers healthy. That's rather unique in the NFL. And that's correct. With Goddard back, Adam, you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Goddard, and, of course, Jahan Dotson as the slot receiver. I mean, we just talked about the Packers. Jordan Love got banged up in their game, their season finale. We'll see what happens. Christian Watson had to get carted off. They've had to deal with sort of injuries at the quarterback and wide receiver position all year long, and it is rare and a great thing for the Eagles to be fully healthy, assuming everything's fine with Hurts and he does get through the protocol this week. That's a really good feather in their cap.
Yeah, and assuming we also don't have the dreaded pop-up injuries, which hate to jinx it, but every team goes through this.
Well, it wouldn't be any of the starters who didn't play. So they didn't play. They didn't get clipped on the sidelines, which I've seen before when somebody runs into a player. No, that didn't happen. But I'm interested to see what. Hopefully, Goddard's knee is not even listed on the injury report this week, and we'll have a. So we've got. Let's see, for Patreon, we've got Greg Tuesday night. Greg Cosell. Yep.
Yeah, we've got our live stream with our Patreon members Thursday night at 8 Eastern. Both are at 8 Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday. Q&A is dropping when? We drop on Tuesday morning.
Be back Tuesday morning. Yep.
Love that. Inside the tape. We'll drop that.
One I did speak to. He's still planning to do gun-on-ones throughout the playoffs. He didn't tell me what guest he's got. He likes to keep that under.
Merrill Reese is phenomenal. Merrill Reese, good friend.
Merrill was great. Yeah, Merrill was great. Yep,
Miss Merrill.
All right, so it's going to be. And we have a fantastic for our Patreon members. We have a fantastic chalk talk coming up this week with somebody. You can't get a better source of someone who's worked with Saquon Barkley outside of the Eagles organization, like outside of having Jamal Singleton on with us or Nick Sirianni, right? You can't get a better, more insightful source on Saquon Barkley than the guest we're going to have. Should I keep it a surprise or should I announce it?
Announce it.
All right. He is Jeff Nixon. He's the offensive coordinator right now for Syracuse University, which did a great job this year and just had a huge win in there against Washington State in the bowl game. But Jeff Nixon was the Giants running back coach last year. It might have been even the last 2 years, but either way, he was the Giants running backs coach. So he had gotten to know Saquon very well. He's coached him. He's going to come on with us. He's also a Penn State guy, so we might get into that. He's also coached with Jeff Hafley for the 49ers on Chip Kelly's staff. So the Packers defensive coordinator, he'll give us insight onto Jeff Hafley and what to expect from the Packers defense. It's going to be a great interview. You got to get to see this interview. It'll be on patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. Sign up today so you're not late and you don't miss out.
Sounds good, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, good stuff. So that's what's coming up this week on the platform. Thanks everybody for watching. And of course, we've got a lot of great content coming your way. Also, if you get a chance, please follow us, not only just on Instagram and Twitter, but on TikTok. We have been putting up a lot of content there now. So no, we're not doing like, Saquon Barkley. We're just doing good videos on TikTok. It's at Inside the Birds on TikTok, TikTok, all one word, lowercase. I better end this show before I say something even worse. So thanks everybody for watching. You've been watching Inside the Birds post-game live. Catch you on the next one.